So, if you're over 40 and you're trying to lose weight, you might have noticed that things are a little different, especially if you're using the medications like Zepbound or Wegovy, also known as semaglutide or terzepatide. Today, we're going to talk about weight loss if you're over 40 with those GIP, GLP-1 medications, what to expect, and what are some tricks of the trade that can help you be most successful.
Welcome to She's Healthy, a podcast for ambitious women on their journey to become the healthiest version of themselves. I'm your host, Lori Aikman.
All right, welcome back to the podcast. If this is your first time here, I want to let you know this is we're going back and touching back on these weight loss medications. So I did do 4 or 5, 6 part, I can't even remember how many series on weight loss injections like semaglutide and tirzepatide back earlier this year. So you can go back and listen to some of those episodes. Today, I want to talk to women. I actually had a conversation with a friend today, and she's 41, I think 41 or 42. She's a year older than me. I guys, as I'm recording this, sorry, personal side note, tomorrow's my 40th birthday. It's a little surreal. So like you find me, comment below, all my ladies that are 40 or and up, or find me on Instagram. You can send me a DM at Lori Aikman. But how many of you have you've hit your 40s and you're like, whoa, things are not the same. Weight loss is different, right? If that's you, and if you've looked into either if you're taking, have taken, or want to take medications like semaglutide, tirzepatide, also known as Wegovy, Zepbound, Ozempic, Mounjaro. There's so many names, but there's really just two medications. We're going to talk about what to expect if you are in that age range and some tricks of the trade that will help you be most successful. So before I dive in, I do have to give you my medical disclaimer. My name is Lori Aikman. I am your podcast host. I am a nurse practitioner in the state of Florida. I have a direct primary care practice and then also a health coaching practice for clients that are outside of Florida. I'm going to tell you how you can get in contact with us at the end of the podcast if you'd like to do so, but there's multiple ways we can work with you. But I do want to let you know that this podcast is for informational purposes only. So this does not constitute medical advice. I always recommend you talk to your provider, your practitioner, before you make any changes to your healthcare plan. So the first thing I want to talk about is if you are in that category, if you're 40 plus and you're looking to, you're trying to lose weight, and even if you're taking those injections or you're not, what I want to tell you, and you probably already noticed, is that weight loss can take more time when you kind of hit this age range, right? So you might be when you were younger, you're like, I could, go back in the gym, watch my, cut my carbs a little bit and lose 5 or 10 pounds. And now those things that you used to do, right? Your body may feel just not the same, where you're trying to do those things you used to do and it's just not working anymore. What I want to tell you is that it is still possible for you to lose weight. It's not that your body, is resistant and you just should just settle for the weight you're at. You can lose weight, but I'm telling you, it will take more time. The reason is so one with age, right? Whereas we're at 40, you might not be super close to perimenopause yet. So most women go through menopause around age 51. That's the average age. And women will start to experience some symptoms if they do experience those menopausal symptoms, 3 to 5 years before. Some women can experience those symptoms up to 10 years before. But what happens is that when we hit that stage, especially when we hit that menopausal stage, is we have a change in our body's ability to handle our blood sugar. And what we see is that as just those hormonal changes, we will become more insulin resistant. What this means, so you're like, what the heck is insulin resistance means? Is that when we eat food, we're just going to talk about carbs to make it simple. You eat a piece of fruit, has carbohydrates, right? That fruit gets broken down eventually into molecules of sugar. Okay. Not table sugar, not the sugar you bake with, but just chemically, it's a molecule of sugar. That sugar goes from your small intestine into your bloodstream. And then in order for that sugar to get into your cell, for your body to use it as energy, insulin is the hormone that I always like to say unlocks the door. The insulin lets the sugar from the bloodstream into the cell so that your cell can use it for energy. Okay. So when you are insulin resistant, what happens is that insulin doesn't work as well. The analogy I love to use is the key. Insulin is like the key that unlocks the door, and what happens is like your key is getting stuck. It's not working really well, and what your body does is makes more keys. Okay, so when you become insulin resistant, typically you have higher levels of insulin, and then insulin is a fat storing hormone. So you have, these insulin resistant, and then you have higher insulin levels that are causing you to gain weight more easily or make it harder to lose weight. So when you're trying to lose weight in this instant, what we have to do is lower your blood sugar and insulin levels, and this can take time. If you ask any diabetic, this can take time. I have even just patients, I have friends that I know that monitor this. They're really healthy, healthy people. They literally watch what they eat very closely, watch their blood sugar, they exercise regularly, and it just takes time. Some of us are going to be genetically, some of us, this can just be harder than others. So if you're somebody who's like, okay, my girlfriend took Ozempic or whichever and lost, 20 pounds like that, and I've been taking it and my weight hasn't changed at all. It's just, it could be your biology. So I talked about one, it can take time. Two, it's because of these changes that are going on hormonally with your blood sugar and insulin. And then the third point I want to talk about is how do you actually make some progress? What do you need to do in order to get the weight to move? So there's a couple things. So one thing for sure. So if we go back to blood sugar and insulin, is we really do have to lower blood sugar and insulin through our diet. Okay. And so this does look like lowering our carbohydrates, but it's not just lowering our carbohydrates. What I hate to see women do is just try to restrict, to cut calories, to just try and cut carbs, and then because of that they're not nourishing themselves enough, they're not eating enough, and then this is just going to kind of cause a cycle that's just going to keep them from losing weight. So when they cut their calories too much, and especially when they're not nourishing themselves enough, they are going to slow down their thyroid function, which is going to slow down their metabolism. So it is cutting carbohydrates, but it's making sure that you are eating adequate amounts of protein and then healthy fats. So I usually recommend women get at least 30 grams of protein at each meal. Another significant thing about the 30 grams is when you have 30 grams of protein at your meal, this is going to stimulate something called mTOR, which is going to help with muscle growth and maintenance. And something you may have heard of, we're touching on a lot of things here, is that people, when they take, like, have you heard the Ozempic face, right? It's that people are because of the weight, the appetite suppression on these medications, people are under eating and they're undernourished and they're losing muscle. So one of the things I recommend is I really try to help women maintain their muscle as much as possible. This is going to be best for you hormonally. This is going to be best for your success long term. And it's really key because as we age, we have a decline in growth hormone, which means it's harder for us to maintain our muscle. And guess what? Muscle is going to help us to lower our insulin resistance, right? It's going to help that insulin work really well. So it's really key that you get enough protein in, and that, again, that 30 grams at each meal is needed to stimulate that mTOR for muscle growth and maintenance. Okay. And then you're going to want to add in plenty of healthy fats. Because when we're decreasing our amount of carb intake, we've got to replace that with healthy fat in order to get enough nourishment. Okay. So this does look somewhat keto-ish. This, I will tell you, this can be nuanced. Meaning what works for one person does not work for another. I have a patient in particular that does CrossFit. And so lowering her carbs, we tried lowering her carbs down to 50, which was too low for her with her amount of activity. I have another patient who does not do CrossFit. She does do Pilates. She does exercise, but not quite to that intensity. She was also not able to tolerate her carbohydrates that low. So for both of them, we've actually set their carbohydrate intake goal around 80 grams a day. And this has worked better for them where they don't feel unwell. Some of you, if you restrict your carbs too much, you're like, I just feel like crap, right? I don't have energy. Like, you want to make sure you're not restricting yourself so much that you're causing harm to your body. And so we've got to find that fine line of restricting those carbs to help you lose weight, but not to the detriment of your body. Okay. The other thing we want to do, so in order to, get the weight moving, in order to lower blood sugar, lower insulin, we're lowering our carbohydrates, like we said. The other thing that I really recommend, and I touched on this one already with a protein intake, is that I always recommend that my patients do exercise in order to build muscle. So exercise is great in any form. I love people being able to move their body in whatever way they like. So if it is Pilates, if it's yoga, if it's dancing, if it is lifting weights, whatever. I don't want to discourage people like, well, that's not enough, like get moving, right? But what I find is that sometimes people underestimate the type, or just don't realize the type of movement that it requires in order to really get that weight moving. When you're like, okay, I've hit a plateau, I haven't been able to lose. What I generally recommend if people are not doing this is if exercise in the form of weight training or resistance training. So this is exercising and lifting weights to the degree that you're really trying to build strength. Okay. So this is not, what is that women's gym? This is not, no offense to them. This is not curves, right? This isn't like, let's do a lot of reps really fast. This is slowing down your weightlifting, where you're doing shorter, heavier sets where you're going to like muscle fatigue, right? Where you're going, like the goal is literally each time you're getting stronger. Next week, when you come back, maybe you're following some kind of plan and like you're trying to increase in your weights each week because you're really trying to build muscle and strength. That is going to help the best with improving that insulin resistance and help you lean out. I will tell you now with this, I'll give myself as an example. It's 10 years ago now. I'm about to be 40 tomorrow. So I started 10 years ago, I started doing CrossFit. And in the first 3 months, I have pictures from when I started to 3 months in. And my weight did not change, but you can see in the pictures, my body composition changed. I gained muscle and I lost fat. You could see more muscle definition, just really leaning out doing that. So this is another recommendation I always give is don't just pay attention to the number on the scale. Don't just pay attention to, oh, well, I weigh this amount. You want to pay attention to how are your clothes fitting? I hear that from women all the time. They're like, I haven't lost any weight, but I did drop down a pant size, right? That means you probably gained muscle and then you lost fat, right? Which is better for your body biologically. Like that's a good thing. I just discourage people or try to encourage them to not get so wrapped up in the number on the scale, but pay attention to those wins. Like I have more energy. I'm sleeping better. My clothes are fitting better. People say I look like I've lost weight. I can see it in my face, right? Those are all huge wins besides, well, I'm still 160, I started at 160 and I'm still 160 or whatever it is for you. just be aware, if you are somebody that's really wrapped up in the number, that when you do start weight training, you may not necessarily see the scale go down, but you're going to look for those other signs of success in your body, those changes in your body. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna leave it there. I feel like we covered a good amount. So again, when we're using GLP-1s, when we're using things like Ozempic, Wegovy, semaglutide, terzepatide to lose weight, especially if we are 40 and up as women, one, it can take time. Two, it's because of the hormonal changes that have happened where we are becoming more insulin resistant. I've done other episodes on this, but something I didn't touch on today is also if you do have a cortisol issue, if you do have a thyroid issue, those things can make you more insulin resistant, right? So it can be just the changes from menopause. It can also be, you can have like a triple whammy, right? You can be, you're in your 40s, you're having those hormonal changes, you also have a cortisol issue, and you also have hypothyroidism, right? That can really make it hard for that weight to move. And again, it just is going to take time in order to get those hormones back into place before that weight significantly changes. Okay. So then the way we're going to do that, the way we're going to lower our blood sugar and insulin is by changing our diet to lower our carbohydrate intake, right? Helping to bring down blood sugar and insulin. And then I always recommend doing some weight training exercise in order to improve your insulin resistance. So I'm going to actually wrap up. I should have told a story in the beginning. I'm going to wrap up right now with a story. If you follow me on social media, I did post about this recently, but I had a client in particular, a patient who I just want to give you her case as an example. So when she came to me, she was 39. She just turned 40, same age as me, just turned 40 recently. She had been on semaglutide for a year, lost about 40 pounds, but had hit a plateau for about 3 months. She was not able to lose anymore. And what I had to, kind of take her through was this process of, okay, this is what's going hormonally. And we did blood work on her. So we were able to confirm that there was some insulin resistance that was contributing to her weight loss plateau. She was also, those other things, there was signs that she had adrenal stress. She also had hypothyroidism. So she had that triple whammy, right? So one of the things we did was we switched her from semaglutide to tirzepatide. The evidence is stronger for tirzepatide that it helps people lose weight more than semaglutide, right? We also looked at optimizing her thyroid function. Her TSH was in range, so we didn't change her levothyroxine. But we did add in some thyroid nutrients. There were some signs that she needed some adrenal support and that she also needed some nutrient support, things like iodine, selenium, that help to support the thyroid function. And then we did the things I talked about. We talked about that we worked on the diet most. I would say she has not integrated a ton of exercise. But I will tell you, it took 2 months for the weight to start moving. And part of the journey was I had to kind of coach her through, like, it's okay. This is because of what's going on hormonally in your body. It's gonna change, but it's gonna take time. And we were chatting about it, and that was the feedback like we kind of talked about, hey, can I share your story? And that was the advice she gave me, was like just letting people know that it is possible, but it takes time. You're not broken. Stick with it, stay consistent, and the weight is gonna move. The other story I do want to give, I don't know if you've seen this. Someone said this recently in a business group I'm in. They said that keto is out, and it's passe, and that high carbohydrate diets are now in. And I thought this was funny because it's like kind of talking about what's popular, what's trendy. When it comes to weight loss, we've got to look at what actually works. And for a lot of us, when we've reached this stage over 40, and if we're not weight training, things like that, if things aren't optimized, like I've talked about, what we'll find is that we have a harder time handling carbohydrates, right? And there's a metabolism issue going on. And what we have to do is get the metabolism operating normally again. There's a bunch of things that go into that. And I would say don't go for what diet is popular. We need to go for what diet is best for your biology. Is best to go with, what your body needs based on what's going on hormonally with you. All right. So I'm going to leave it at that. Now, if you have listened to this podcast and you're like, all right, how do I get some help with this? I want to invite you to the upcoming master class that we have going on. It is in just under 2 weeks. On Wednesday, July 31st, we're doing a master class on weight loss with GLP-1s and GIPs. So those medications, semaglutide and terzepatide. So if you have wanted to try those medications, if you have tried those medications, maybe you're on them right now, and maybe you've tried them and you've not been successful, this is the master class for you. I'm going to put that link to sign up for the master class below in the show notes. This will be something will be held live, and it will be sent, the replay will be sent out only if you register. So this isn't something that's getting email blasted to my whole email list. This is just for people that register for this masterclass. So if you want to get in on that, if you are watching this video on YouTube, the link for that masterclass will be in the show notes. If you are listening on one of the podcast platforms, the link will be below in the show notes. I can't remember if I feel like I just messed that up. YouTube, it'll be in the comments, show notes if you are listening on the podcast platforms. All right, there we go. And if you're maybe listening after July 31st, maybe you're finding this later, I will also put a link for you to book an interest call with our practice, so that you can, we can help you decide what is the next best step for you. All right. I will see you in the next